Welcome to Mainland, your local regional television station, coming to you from the Nelson and Tasman region. In today's news, Legal High's council hearings postponed, Phil Goff shares views on Legal High's decision, Nelson grey power to undergo makeover, and Motueka's biggest store celebrates with local iwi. The surprise announcement on Sunday that the government will, under urgency, pass legislation removing all remaining psychoactive substances from sale has prompted council to postpone its hearings on legal highs. All legal highs will be removed from sale until they've been subject to a testing regime. Chair of Council's Planning and Regulatory Committee, Councillor Brian McGurk, says the council has always been mindful of the effect legal highs are having on individuals, families and the wider community. He says it would therefore be unfair on submitters and unreasonable for the committee to hear submissions in this climate of uncertainty. He says they can't make presumptions on the final form of this sudden legislation change until the parliamentary process is completed. Meanwhile, Labour Associate Spokesperson Foreign Affairs and Spokesperson for Ethnic Affairs, Trade and Defence Phil Goff was in Nelson on Tuesday speaking at the Victory Community Centre, and Mainland's Janine Pugh caught up with Phil and asked him for his opinions on the legal highs issue.
Okay, Phil, the government has just made an announcement on Sunday regarding the banning of legal highs within the next 2 weeks. What's Labour's thoughts on this process? And what would you have done differently?
Well, it was Labor's announcement that was due to take place earlier in the week that finally promoted the government to do the right thing on the legal highs. Look, night after night we've seen stories of people who have suffered from addictions, who have been able to buy these things in corner shops. It's legal, so it must be okay. It must have been obvious right from the start that before any substance that is psychoactive that can be sold, the manufacturer must prove that that substance is not damaging to the health and the well-being of the individual. That's what should have happened the first time around.
So you do think this announcement was maybe a little bit of a misjudgment by the government, as with these 2 weeks of almost grace? Mm-hmm. There could be a lot of people out there thinking, oh, I'm going to stockpile, and then I can sell to people.
I think the government should have moved much earlier, and they should have done it without notice. It's sad that it was only Labor's impending policy that forced the government's hand on this. We needed the government, as soon as they picked up the messages that were coming from all over the country, from communities high and low in New Zealand, that it's a bad thing to have these substances freely available without any proof that they weren't damaging the health and well-being of people. They should have picked up that message earlier. They were slow in coming to the party. Thank God they've finally done it.
There is that, but then there's the other thing, what's going to happen now? Is anyone thinking, okay, preempting what's going to happen?
Well, I think certainly what the government has to do is to enforce its policy. People are saying, oh, if you'll drive it underground. Well, frankly, better underground than in the corner dairy. But if it's being done underground and it's illegal, then I would expect the government to enforce its policy fully. These things are serious. We can't have our kids, our teenagers or adults going in, using these substances and finding that there is a real damage to their health. Saying it's illegal implies that it's okay. Of course it's not okay.
That's exactly right. Now, animal testing, that's come into the fire at the moment. The Prime Minister said he wouldn't be happy with dogs and rabbits, but rodents. What's your take on this?
I think when you're talking about legal highs, subjecting any animal to pain and suffering for something that is not essential for the health of an individual is wrong. Look, if we were talking about a form of cancer and you had to trial it, yes, of course, you might be using rodents or other suitable animals because you're talking about saving human lives. But making animals suffer for something that's a recreational drug, it's not right.
Rural Women New Zealand welcomes news that the government is tackling the issue of legal highs following reports from their members of a surge in antisocial threatening behaviour in rural townships, apparently stemming from their use. However, Rural Women New Zealand says the withdrawal of supply from shops must be coupled with more resources in rural areas for those suffering from the effects of drug addiction and their families. New Zealand Health spokesperson Margaret Pittaway says Rural Women New Zealand says there's a real concern in rural communities about the lack of access to specialist services. She says distance to treatment services and support for families can be a real barrier to getting the help required to overcome addiction or deal with its results. And now Mainland's Chrissy Small asked the public for their views on Nelson musician Ali Cook's innovative idea for an alternative events venue by way of an oversized marquee.
Trafalgar Centre has been closed due to earthquake risk.
Yes.
Do you think that there's room for an interim measure like a big performance tent that could be utilised?
I think a tent would probably be a good idea, depending, do you know the cost on that?
Under $1 million.
Right, it's a big tent.
There's talking about seating 6,000 people as
Yeah.
opposed to 3,000 at the Trafalgar Centre.
Yeah, so it's got to be a bonus there, but how often do they pack that stadium? How often do they use it? Is it way up there?
Yeah, I actually think that would be quite a good idea because, I mean, the Giants can't play in Nelson anymore and the stage challenge that was really popular got closed down too, so it could probably be quite helpful.
Right, be possible, but what about being in winter?
Oh, heaters.
Really?
Yeah.
I'd rather see something done with the Trafalgar Centre, but I think $27 million, I would be looking for a second opinion on that.
Yeah.
As a quote from someone else, because I think it's exorbitant given the cost of the Saxton Field Centre.
No, that's definitely a good idea, yeah.
Yeah, it's easier to do and it'd be easier to just shift around if they need to.
Yeah. And I mean, if it's going to fit that many people, why not? Why not? Like, why not at all?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's
Especially
much
if it could be done for under $1 million. Do you think that's
Oh,
a
yeah.
good
Oh,
proposal?
definitely. If it's going to be done a lot cheaper than what it's, you know,
what they've quoted already, then it'll be a lot easier to do and a lot cheaper and more effective.
Yes, yeah, it sounds right actually, and something like that, and because that's the thing, you can build these big kind of tents into kind of permanent structures, and it's ideal for the fact you can roll up the sides even if it's a nice fine sunny day or evening and stuff.
We might not have lost WOW if we'd had a big tent.
Yeah, true.
No, probably is. I mean, if that's an option, I'd say yes, because I mean, lots of things don't come to Nelson, and you've got to go everywhere else to go somewhere, to go to a concert or a show or something. Yeah. Sure.
Nelson Grey Power is getting a makeover in an effort to attract more members in the 50 to 65 age bracket. The organisation held its AGM on Monday night, in which its members were asked to approve a name change to 50 plus Nelson Grey Power. The Public Service Association says a new report has revealed the chilling impacts of a new deal being negotiated behind closed doors by New Zealand, Australia, the US and 20 other parties. The report, TISA versus Public Services, was commissioned by Public Services International, the global trade union to which the New Zealand PSA is affiliated, and looks in depth at the trade and services agreement being secretly negotiated. Richard Wagstaff, PSA National Secretary, says public services exist for the good of all New Zealanders, not for the profit of multinational corporations. The TISA versus Public Services report shows our government is involved in negotiations that could take away New Zealanders' rights to equality, well-regulated public services. He says if agreed to, TISA could make future privatisation legally irreversible, removing New Zealanders' right to say how our society is run. Last week was a busy week for Motueka, kicking off on Wednesday with a visit by the PM John Key, when the National Party candidate for Tasman, former Western Mayor Maureen Pugh, launched her new Motueka office. Then later in the week, in the afternoon on Anzac Day, Motueka's biggest retailer and retail employer relaunched its store after a 5-week refurbishment. It was a community-based reopening, and Chrissy Small was there when local iwi blessed the refurbished store, along with a tribute to the fallen from both wars. There were also performances by the local Motueka High School Kapahaka group, for the store staff and the public who came in their hundreds for the store's relaunch. Warehouse head office management were also present at the launch to thank warehouse staff for their efforts and the Motueka community for their patience during the store's refurbishment. Chrissy Small managed to grab Motueka store manager Jeff for a quick chat about the upgrade and his future plans within the warehouse.
Now, Jeff, this is an exciting day, Anzac Day, of course. It's been a day of remembrance, but also it's new things for the Motueka warehouse. What has just happened today?
Well, an exciting time for the local community, simply because we've brought our store into the here and now. I think it's modernised, it's refreshed, and it's ready to really serve our community now. Right.
Now, it's been a 5-week task for those involved in refitting the store. It looks $1 million. Now, this store's been here for how long?
Well, this store's been here for 12 years now, and I think for 11 of those years it was in its original state. So, year 12, we've given it the zhuzh.
Now, there was some concern originally when the warehouse was opened here that it would affect the local businesses, but the opposite's happened, hasn't it?
It has. I think it's well documented now that when the warehouse arrived here, there was some concern, some worry. However, it helped rejuvenate the town. You know, more people came to town, therefore more businesses opened. So it was a good circle.
Yeah. Well, it's got quite a thriving little community going here. Now, there's quite a big employer in the region too, isn't it?
It is. You know, we see ourselves as a community business. We employ sort of 60 people locally, and that's sorted over full and part-time jobs. But that's a lot of people for the community, and all those wages we pay go back into the community.
Right. So that's a lot of families actually involved in this particular store, isn't it?
Rural New Zealand, there's not many degrees of separation, absolutely.
So now, Jeff, this store is, of course, we've got Motueka and we've got Nelson, but I believe we've got the Richmond store to look forward to as well, and you're playing a big part in that.
Yes, I am. After 3 years here at the mighty Motueka, I've been appointed to the new Richmond store, which is going to be another challenge, another chapter, I think. However, it's going to be very hard to replicate a store like Motueka, rural New Zealand, and the support we get from the community here is fantastic. In fact, the amount of people that we drag from Richmond to shop here is going to be a loss to the store if I do it right in Richmond.
Well, you won't have the same team, will you?
Well, I won't, that's true. So, and team make up a big part of how it happens in a store, absolutely.
But you'll be looking for like-minded, I'm sure.
Like-minded, community, pride, passion, all those key things that make a place special.
Yeah. Oh, Jeff, look, it's a fantastic turnout. I couldn't believe the amount of people that poured through the doors as soon as they could get in, and they're still coming in. So it's a big day for the store, and I'm sure for all the staff involved.
Great day for Motueka, fantastic day for the warehouse. Really proud to be involved in it, and we wish the Motueka warehouse and the Iwi Trust, who are our leaseholders, wish them all the very best.
Cheers, thanks very much.
Thanks, Chrissy.
After the break, we'll bring you the latest weather update and some events and happenings coming up from around the region.